We are asking this question about which country is India's biggest enemy, and there is no prize for guessing the right answer. A very large number of people say Pakistan is our biggest enemy. China is in between, so it's not that people's view about China has changed now compared to what it used to be earlier. Earlier also, China was not seen as the big best friend. It was not among the top five, and not even among the top five in terms of biggest enemy. So it is in between.
You're watching Strat News Global. I'm Ramananda Sengupta. Our very, very special guest today are Dr. Sanjay Kumar, co-director of the Lokniti Center for the Study of Developing Societies, and Dr. Adrian Hack, director of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung India office. And we're going to be talking about their recent survey on how India sees Europe and Germany. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Let me start with Dr. Kumar. Dr. Kumar, could you just tell us what sort of led to this paper? It was launched long before all this, Trump came into power and all the stuff started about Europeans getting a bit thing. What was the genesis of it?
We decided to do this project not because of a particular event or something happened and that triggered our ideas about that. But me and Professor Hack, we have been discussing this idea that, we have been doing CSDS Lokniti has a very long-standing partnership with Konrad Adenauer Stiftung India office. And we have been doing different kinds of study. And the idea was to do something which has a different orientation. So we had a long discussion and we thought that why not look at, because foreign policy, when you talk about foreign policy in India, it looks like as if this is a thing of the elite of India. People, common people don't talk about foreign policy. This is not exactly about foreign policy, but somewhat connected to that. So we wanted to, touch the pulse of the common people of India about what do they think about Europe, what do they think about Germany, and on various aspects. I think that's the starting point when we decided that let's do a study of this kind.
So if that was the sort of, trigger, for want of a better word for doing that, I noticed that, right in the beginning, it says that Russia is, India's sort of best friend. And then you have the US, which, I wouldn't really call Europe. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the sense I got was that Russia is our best friend, but it's the US that's going to help India become a superpower. Is that the impression that you got from there?
This is not impression. When we say impression, if I'm talking to just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, I would have said, yes, this is the impression. This is a hard evidence. And that's the beauty of a study which is based on survey. We interviewed large number of people, and these are interviews conducted at 3 different levels of cities, the big metropolitan town, the small towns, and the smallest towns. So looking at how people look at these things, when you say, in your opinion, which country is India's best friend, whatever we may be reading in the textbook, whatever we may be looking at the data about trade, etc., whether India is doing the trade with country A, B, C or D, and if you try to infer from that, how do people look at which country is India's friend, I think that's the wrong reading. This gives you a correct reading of people's mind. Remember, this is people's mind, common people's mind. Whenever you do a survey, at times it surprises you, at times it also goes along with your normal thinking. So normally if you talk to the people, which country is India's friend, normal people, maybe the academia, journalists, maybe they will not say Russia, people may be giving a response. But common people of India think of Russia as the best friend of India. And when you say which country comes to your mind first when you talk about West, so for a very large number of people, West means USA. Technically it's not right, but we are trying to catch people's opinion. That is what this study has been able to do.
Dr. Hart, when we were talking about this earlier at the release of this book, of this paper, something that you said struck me. That when we were talking about Germany, and people seem to know a whole lot about BMW, but nobody seems to know about Mercedes. Now, how do you reconcile that? I found that quite intriguing as well.
Yeah, I mean, you refer on that one question about German brands in that study, and it shows that one brand is completely ahead, and another very famous brand is not very much known in India. But again, it's about people's mind. It is not about. It doesn't say anything about the brand in particular or how many cars.
Absolutely.
Brand number 1 or brand number 2 sells, but of course for both brands it's a sign that you rather have very good marketing or that you have a problem.
Mm-hmm. And, the other thing that struck me was that when we talk about India and Europe, one of the common challenges that people face is language. People say, oh, UK is the place we can go to because we understand English perhaps. But Germany, I have to learn German. Or any other European country, I have to learn French, I have to learn, Spanish or whatever. Do you think that really is the challenge if somebody were to talk about Germany?
I mean, we see in the survey that when you ask about migration, you have first of all a very different results compared to the chapter of geopolitics.
Right.
Because no one wants to migrate to Russia, and if you look at the spots where people from India like to migrate, UK is of course ahead of Germany and France.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take the language barrier you mentioned into account, the gap is rather low. I think it's just a few percent advantage of the UK. So it doesn't seem that from in Indians' minds or in Indians' perceptions, the language barrier is that high. Maybe it means they are keen to learn another language. You obviously have a lot of languages already in India.
That's true. That's true. Now, I'm going to ask both of you, perhaps the same kind of a question, in the sense that, I assume that neither of you had any sort of suppositions when you started came with an open mind. I'm sure both of you must have been surprised by some result that, you said, wow, how did this happen? Would you like to talk about one or two which really surprised you?
One which we discussed right at the beginning, which country comes to your mind first when you talk about West? And a very large number of people say USA, America. Right. That in itself is surprising to me because I never thought that people would say USA. And which country do you want to go for employment, education? For employment, I thought maybe Canada would be at very high. Canada is not at very high. It's at very low. And as Dr. Adenauer mentioned, UK is number 1, but Germany is not lagging behind. It's
I know, I saw it at number 3 in a lot of the places.
So I won't say it surprised me, but yes, maybe it didn't go along with the way I had thought. But mostly, we also discussed about Russia, why people are saying Russia as India's best friend. That didn't came to me as a surprise because we have been asking this question over a period of time. We started asking this question in 1999 for the first time. Ever since then, Russia still holds number 1 position in the minds of Indians about which country is India's best friend.
That's interesting. Dr. Hart?
I think the interesting result, or I have 2 interesting results. One is that you have a high percentage of people that don't consume Western pop culture, may it be cinema, music, or also apps. Yeah? And for me, this was of course surprising because I mainly spent my time in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. But this shows you that India is much more. So the survey was, as Professor Kumar said, all over India.
That's right.
And not only in the big metropolitan area. So it shows that you have a difference there. Yeah? And also when it came to geopolitics, if you combine the answers, who's India's best friend, you had a variety of very good friend and good friend.
That's right.
And if you combine very good and good friend, you have a very strong bipolarity, because in US and Russia are rather ahead. Same. So actually, US has 1% more if you combine them, and this shows that you have a very big, let's say, bipolarity within society, which is also north-south divide,
Right.
which is to be seen here, and it is, and which is what is also close to that, is that Europe is pretty much the term Europe is rather weak. We have the term the West, which includes the entire Western world, however you want to define them.
Right.
And this is for European, of course, an interesting finding, because I consider myself European because I grew up there. Yeah? So from my perspective, there's an Atlantic in between. But looking from India, it's kind of one cultural block. That was very interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that, even Australia is marked as there, and a few other, even some Southeast Asian countries have started figuring in that.
No, about the surprises, may I add one more thing? If you look at the number of people or proportion of Indians wearing jeans, whether that person belongs to a very low income class or a very high income class, especially among the young, you get an impression, at least generally you get an impression that the Western clothes are predominantly preferred by the Indians.
Right.
And if you try to segregate it by the age, the younger the people, like age group of 18 to 25. But in the survey, yes, it is a preferred clothing preference, but on special occasions still, and that is a surprise to me, a very large number of Indians, especially even the younger ones, would go along with the Indian clothes, the traditional Indian clothes. So what we call, say, like the pajama kurta.
Right.
You might think, these youngsters, 18 years, 20 years, will they be willing to wear this pajama kurta? But on special occasion, there is a very large preference for wearing Indian traditional clothes. So that is a little bit of surprise, because I thought the young Indians don't want to go along with the traditional Indian clothes. They want to prefer the Western outfit, whether it is jeans or some other Western outfit.
We'll be back after a short break. Don't go away.
मन में वो पायरेट्स ऑफ द कैरिबियन का म्यूजिक आ रहा है।
Today we have received intel regarding poaching activities in our area. We are going to intercept the boat and apprehend the culprits. Am I clear? Yes, sir! How's the Josh? Yes, sir! Let's go, take post. Go, 1, 2.
Rolling.
Which brings me to another question that I wanted to ask. From this survey, what struck me as interesting was that apparently a lot of Indians seem to believe that Indian culture is far superior to, all the other cultures, including European and whatever it is. Of course, culture is a very broad term to use here. But do you think that's a recent phenomena? Something to do with the, the recent government that's come in over the last 10 years? Or is it, because you've been doing this service for a long time.
Very difficult to say whether this is a recent phenomena or not, because we don't have a comparative data, at least on this question. If we had asked this question maybe a few years ago, we should have been in a better position to compare. But I do agree, I get a sense that if you look at how the present government is trying to popularize, endorse, or celebrate the Indian culture traditions. Recently, in the month of January, so we had a big festival in Prayagraj, Kumbh. And the way people were celebrating Kumbh, people wanted to go and have a dip in the holy Ganga in Prayagraj, and the way it was being popularized in the media and being pushed by the government. I'm sure the likes about Indian culture or the superiority about Indian culture, that this phenomena, this feeling may have come up in such an aggressive manner during last few years. Maybe if we had done this survey 10 years ago, I'm not saying that 10 years ago people didn't respect Indian culture, didn't like, but I think there must be, there would have been a degree of gap in how people look at their tradition and culture now, and how people would have looked at tradition and culture maybe 10, 15 years ago.
That's interesting. Dr. Haq, when you saw the survey, results for the first time, is there something that struck you as something which is, maybe it's a perception or maybe it's a thought process that comes in, which you feel is wrong and you would like to correct?
This would be the second thought, let's say. First of all, we have to accept this is the opinion of people. That's why you do a survey. Like philosopher Kant said, every world is the real world.
Absolutely.
We all have our thoughts, and if we both look at the number, it's from my perspective is 6, from yours it's a 9. So first of all, we have to accept that, and based on that, we can let's say build something up, because only if we know what the other side thinks, we can react on that. But I don't think there are bigger misperceptions within the Indian society, and I also think we have a positive relationship between Europe and Germany in particular and India, because you see there is a huge amount of people saying we want to preserve our own culture, but it doesn't. It's not in an aggressive manner. At the same time, you have a huge amount of people that they say, I would like to go at this place for holiday, or I could imagine studying there. So they are still open-minded. And this is, I would say, a positive result. Yeah?
Okay.
you don't have a dislike towards Europe.
I wasn't talking about dislikes, but some kind of a error in understanding or an error in, that let's say that somebody thinks that I'm just taking a very random example that Mercedes-Benz only makes trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there something like that which you found is a error of understanding rather than error of perception?
No. I mean, there are. You refer again on the brands. Some of the brands might have to think, why is the perception of our brand in India rather low? Why is our airline not as popular as we think it should be? Or why are our cars not as popular as we think they should be? And why do other brands do better? And again, you have to accept the opinion of the people and question yourself if you have to, you can improve something, and the which car brand is the best in Germany? That's a never-ending. That's a religious question.
See, I think the beauty of such surveys, and look at how carefully Indians are thinking.
Yeah.
We were talking about superiority of Indian culture.
That's right.
Tradition and culture. A very large number of people in the survey said that they believe that Indian culture and tradition are superior to the culture and tradition of the West. But there's no disrespect they have shown for the tradition and culture of the West. So this is our culture and tradition is superior, but there is no hint in the survey that they disrespect the culture and tradition of the West. I think that's how people at times look at very, very carefully. Look at the things as they perceive.
One of the other things that struck me was that China, it's always seen as a sort of a enemy nation and somebody that we are sort of, antagonistic towards us. Is that something that you feel has been continuing for a long time, or is that a new phenomenon?
I think it's a new phenomena. As I said, we have been asking this question over a period of time, a very too simple question. Which country do you think has been India's best friend, and which country do you think has been India's biggest enemy? I did mention that Russia is seen as India's best friend over a period of time in the surveys.
That's right.
Which has not changed even after so many years, 16, 17 years, 20 years, we have been asking this question. We are asking this question about which country is India's biggest enemy. And there is no prize for guessing the right answer. A very large number of people say Pakistan is our biggest enemy. China is in between. So it's not that people's view about China has changed now compared to what it used to be earlier. Earlier also, China was not seen as the best friend. It was not among the top 5 and not even among the top 5 in terms of biggest enemy. So it is in between. But I think definitely, I don't have the figures in front of me at the moment. But yes, negative view about China must have gone up slightly because of what has been happening on the border, how the narrative is taking place in the last 5, 7, 10 years, whether it is about Arunachal or whether it is about other parts of India which is bordering China.
I think we're running out of time, so let me conclude with the last question. If you were to do this survey all over again, is there something that you feel you would have done differently or not done? I mean, that's a question for both of you.
See, when we do a survey, after we do the analysis, we realize, there are many things which have been left out. So there are many things which have been left out. We would definitely want to include those. But the beauty of repeating a survey is to repeat some of the questions so that we are able to map changes over a period of time, if at all there have been changes over a period of time. I think European Union, that has to be at the center of the study if we want to do next time. Something about learning about language, etc., that should come in at the forefront of the study so that we are able to do detailed analysis or more nuanced analysis of, what Dr. Hack was mentioning, that you want to settle abroad. Why UK is at number 1? Why Germany and France is at number 2 or 3? Is language a barrier? So some questions of nuanced question of that kind, so that we are able to unfold some of the mysteries which still revolves around the data which we have collected.
Dr. Hack.
Yeah, I think the beauty of that study is that you have a variety of topics. So different people can use it. People who deal with politics, those who deal with civil society, those who deal with economics. So therefore, I would say we could have even a wider variety. It could be bigger. Could be bigger with more topics, more questions, so that even more people can get something out of it.
That would pose more problem for us.
Yes,
people
I know.
who are
I was
doing the
about
survey.
to talk
More
about
challenging.
that.
It would become more challenging.
Yes.
But yes, you're right. If you make it more wider, maybe people would have more interest in this topic.
But there's no end to wider, right?
Absolutely.
It just goes on and on and on.
Absolutely.
Science is endless.
Yes.
With that, I have to call this, fascinating interview to an end. Thank you so very much. I must also commend the two of you for being so crisp in your answers, because normally people tend to ramble a lot. I mean, a lot of people, including me, like the sound of their own voice, so they tend to keep talking a lot. Thank you so very much, and I look forward to hosting you for the next survey whenever you come out with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Sanjay Kumar, co-director of the Lokniti Center for Study of Developing Societies, and Dr. Adrian Hack, director of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung India office, talking to us about their recent survey on Indian perceptions of Europe and Germany. A truly fascinating survey, which, opened my eyes to a lot of stuff which I didn't know. So I hope if you do get a chance to pick it up, please do that. I do hope you enjoyed this particular edition of The Gist, and I look forward to seeing you again. Till then, this is Ramananda Sengupta signing out.